Hello everyone, nubkeks here, and welcome back to Nub Raids for a very, very spicy topic where sort of breaking news over the weekend. I saw Boozor was, I think, the first to do a video on it. Hades has done a video on it as well. We're all talking about it, right? Everyone is talking about it. That Aristocrat Leisure, who are the parent company, the corporation that own Plarium, and of course the Raid Shadow Legends game that we all know and love and hate and play. That is part of Plarium, which is part of Aristocrat. Well, Aristocrat is considering selling off Plarium, and then another part of the company, Big Fish Games, as well. What is going on? Well, we'll come back to this, and we will talk about, could this be good or could this be bad? I'm going to be honest. I will be on the skeptical side of this. I think that this could potentially be a bad thing for Raid in the long term. This is something I think is more concerning than a cause for celebration, which is, I think I've seen the initial comments and stuff that I saw was all being like, yeah, Raid's going to be sold. This is going to be great. Obviously, a new mega corporation is going to pick up the game and they're going to walk in and be like, guys, lower those dungeon diver points, and everyone in the boardroom is like, good meeting, shaking hands, good meeting, yes, excellent. Like, God, what if we just make less money? Yes, excellent, fantastic, yes. We'll come back to that, but the long and short version of this is that non-social casino games just don't fit. I actually thought this was quite interesting that they're referring to Plarium and Big Fish Games as producing casual and mid-core games that are non-social casino. So Aristocrat, they obviously run a lot of actual gambling machines and actual casinos and that sort of stuff, and that's what they want to do. They want to have more of these actual gambling games, and they basically don't like that Raid is too much of a game, basically. They say it somewhere like it's like role-playing games and strategies, other casual games, it's not really our thing, right? We really just want the gambling, right? This actual game part of it doesn't quite fit, which is fair enough, right? They're trying to make money. That's what they're doing. Their whole like casino things is their things. So like Raid has obviously worked out really well for them, but that's why they're looking to potentially move away from Plarium. They're like, look, these guys want to make actual video games. I'm like, what's the point of that, right? So, yeah, let's jump into this. This was, I thought, another interesting, which is their review of operations, right? For Aristocrat Leisure Limited, this is Pixel United, which is the segment that includes Raid Shadow Legends. So we can see, for example, down here, this is sort of the breakdowns of the games, right? The dark blue are their social casino games. In green is their RPG strategy and action, which is the stuff we care about, which is mostly Raid, which is by far their biggest one, right? So Raid Shadow Legends here. And then they've got their casual games, which is in the pink. So they are basically looking to get rid of the pink and the green and to invest that money into more of growing the blue. And you can sort of see why in terms of their portfolio is that their social casino games have stayed fairly stable and indeed are slightly growing, whereas the casual and the RPG games are going down a bit. When we specifically look at, well, in fact, let's look at this as an overview, and this sort of summarizes, this is obviously applying to all of Pixel United, but this is also the case with Raid. Remember they were talking, I think, last year about going into profit mode. What does that mean? Well, this summarizes it a decent bit. So the overall revenue for this is the first half of 2024 is 2% down. So there is less money, slightly less coming in. But their profit has gone up by 17% and their margin is up from 29 point something to 35.1, right? So yes, there's slightly less money coming in, but they're making way more profit. They're making more money off of it. What is going on? What is this profit mode? So typically what this means really is that, well, basically, they're making slightly less income. The extra money is coming from lowering their expenses, right? Costs going down. And this can be things like, obviously slimming down teams, layoffs, that sort of stuff. It can also be, I think for Raid in particular, it's going to be a pretty big chunk of that is just lowering the advertising budget, right? Not trying to get in as many new players, which can be expensive, trying to get in new players and pushing that advertising, toning down on it. And this is something that we've seen, and I think that we should expect moving forwards, is more of a focus on keeping players and making the players that are playing happy. And we'll still be trying to bring in some new players, but there's not going to be so much of a push for it. So for instance, over here, I think this shows as well very clearly. So we've got the daily active users, and then also like basically the amount of money that each daily active user is like worth per day. So this is actually the different colors are the different years. So if we look at the daily active users, now again, this is across all games, but we would expect, I think, a similar trend in Raid. I think is very fair to say the daily active users from 2022 to 2023 to 2024 is going down a decent chunk. There are fewer players playing the game. However, this is the big thing, the money that they are worth is going up equally substantially. And this very much makes sense, right? When you're trying to acquire new players, you're going to have lots of new players come in, try the game. A lot of them probably aren't going to, they might like it, but then get bored and move on. Or they might not really like it at all, right? I saw a cool ad, check out the game. Didn't really like it. I'm moving on and I'm gone. A lot of these new users that you're acquiring, yes, it's going to increase your overall user base, your player base, of course, but they're not going to be probably all that engaged or going to spend all that much money. You're looking for the diamond in the rough, right? The player that does love the game and sticks with it. And obviously for them, they're looking for the player that spends money as well. And that means that as you start to cut down on that advertising and you've got less of these new players like coming in and leaving and coming in and leaving, right? The people that are actually there are the more committed players. So yeah, they're going to be, you're going to see the value of those users overall and on average go up because you're not going to have these sort of, the toe dippers bringing the average down essentially, which is, again, what you would expect. I think this is going to be, you can see again, if we look at the overall for RPG strategy in action, which obviously includes other games as well. So for example, one of Plarium's other games, Mech Arena, I think that's also, it's in there. That's, a lot smaller, didn't really take off, which would be somewhat of a concern for sure, but that's part of it. So I think we can see with Raid, the overall money income is going to be going down, but less going into advertising, getting new players in. You can see that in the game as well, right? Like, what do we have coming this year? Champion balancing, right? Quality of life changes. We know, for example, Sand Devil, Phantom Shogun, Iron Twins, those bosses are getting rebalanced. They're pretty end game bosses, right? That they're adding in a lot of stuff and changing stuff and really focusing on existing players. What more can they do for new players? There's definitely stuff they can do, but, it is a 5-year-old game at this point, and that's the reality of it. I think that's where we're at with Raid as well. I think that would be my outlook for the future, is I think Raid sort of like hit its peak. Does that mean like nosedive, game's dead in a year? Obviously, that's absurd. Obviously not. But I think you're going to see basically this sort of stuff. You're going to see like a slow decline, I think is what you'd expect going forwards. I find it hard to imagine, in fact, that we would see another big upsurge outside of something like another pandemic, like global pandemic, where everyone's inside and mobile games go up again. Like, I just don't see it taking off again in that way. But the game is likely to continue to be very profitable, and there should still be a big focus on quality of life and content for existing players to keep us happy. So I think it's actually not all doom and gloom, but that has to be the realistic expectation for where we're at. Like, that's just where the game is going to be. Now, we look then at this acquisition, and I wanted to touch on this second part first because I think it gives you context for this potential for Aristocrat getting rid of Plarium, basically selling it off. I think it does make sense. They actually bought the game. I don't know if it says it here. Yeah, it was back in, Plarium. They got Plarium in August 2017, which was pre-Raid Shadow Legends for $500 million, by the way. I think that really paid off for them. Like, Raid has been, no question, an absolutely massive success. That is the question mark going forwards, though. How much of Raid's success is due to luck, basically, things like the pandemic, or just they happen to hit on a really good formula. How much of it is luck? How much of it is developer skill? How much do you want to bet on that? Because that could be the concern. I think that's possibly what Aristocrat are looking at. They're going, okay, Plarium, we made a ton of money off Raid. It was a huge success, but it's a cash cow. It's going to keep on giving for probably a few years to come, right? It's going to keep on going and go pretty strong. But are they going to make more hit games? Like, is this something that's going to keep growing? And is this something that we want to invest in, or do we want to move into more of this social casino stuff, which was more our style anyway? It's like, yeah, we took a risk on this, playing this actual video game business, and okay, it worked out well. But look, let's sell it off now while it's very, very profitable. It is profitable. We made a great profit. Sell it off, make more profit, and invest for more profit in the future. It will be an attractive buy for somebody, but we're not certain about the future of the Plarium section moving forwards. We want to do something different. I think that's the reality of it. So this is my concern. Again, I go back to what I was saying at the start. Whoever picks up Plarium, I think the concerns that you as the average player have are not going to be the same concerns that this big mega corporation that's coming to acquire the game is going to have. Again, the big mega corporation doesn't care about, exactly how many points there are for dungeon divers in the fusion. And in fact, I think Plarium has honestly been very free, really. There's very little oversight that the Raid devs have basically been able to do with the game as they will. So it's, everything that you like or dislike about the game, I think most of it is basically them being free to do what they wish. So that might change going forwards, but I think it's unlikely to change for the better in particular. That would be my concern, is that you could have a company come in and grab it and be like, okay, you know what? Let's just ride this out. Game's in profit mode. Let's just make the profit and stop. I think what could happen, which would be a concern for me, is that, a new company could come in and be like, okay, let's make changes, right? We just bought you. Let's make more money. It's a great company. You have a great track record. Let's go. What we want you to do is take a bunch of your best people that are working on Raid right now, take them off. You're going to go build us a new game that's going to be massive. All right. So whatever, you can hire in some new people, whatever, to keep Raid going, keep Raid going, keep the profit going, keep it happening, right? But take your best people off and move them onto something new. And like, that could hurt Raid in the long term, right? So that would be my concern, right? Like, I really don't see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see how people, like, when I look at game acquisitions and generally in the game market, like, usually the direct correlation for big company acquires, bunch of new games. Like, we saw, what was it? Like the Deus Ex devs, I think they were acquired by someone. I was quite excited, like, oh wow, great, cool. Square Enix no longer in control, or whoever it was, and maybe a Deus Ex game will come in. Game is cancelled, and I think that they were all laid off, I'm pretty sure. Like, Blizzard got acquired by Microsoft. Again, I was quite positive about that one. And I still am actually I think that's probably a good one compared to just Activision being in charge. But again, what follows? A ton of layoffs. Like, that's honestly the most likely thing, right? Big game acquisitions. The game industry is pretty brutal. Typically involves a whole lot of layoffs, a whole lot of cost cutting, pretty ruthless stuff, and just chasing profit. Like, the game industry is not a particularly nice industry to work in, is my impression of it. So I think coming into this with an absolute ton of positivity is kind of crazy, frankly. I would definitely be concerned about it. But like I said, I think certainly for the next few years, probably, I think Raid is just going to keep going. And like I said, I think it is going to focus more on stuff that we're probably pretty happy about, which is more quality of life and things like that. But I really, either which way, I really do not see, like, again, guys, it's a 5-year-old game. Is the monetization structure going to completely change? Is the game going to completely change? Like, no. There's not going to be any major changes. I think if you love Raid Shadow Legends today, hopefully you'll still be loving it in 2 years. Of course, an acquisition could have all sorts of impacts. But if you hate the game, like, in 2 years' time, you're still going to hate the game. Like, it's just not going to be radically different or better. Like, that's not going to happen at this point. That's just not going to happen. Your best hope, if you like love some parts of the game but hate other parts, is be like, what's Plarium's next game? Because maybe I'll really like that, and some of the same devs could be working on that as well. That would be the thing. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on it, guys. Let me know what you think about all of this. But I think it's interesting. It's very much really continuing the trend that we've kind of been talking about and been aware of from last year or two, really. Sort of profit mode coming in, which is push the cost down. Look, the game is built, right? It's a massive game. It's a developed game. Push the cost down. The game is the game. It's been a big success. Let's just keep it going. We've got a solid player base. Let's, keep it going and keep the profit coming in. We'll keep developing stuff. But like, yeah, it's not, they're not coming in and going to pump like millions and millions and millions and millions into Raid to make like a massive new thing out of it. It's like, the game is the game. It's a success. Simple as. Kind of end of story. That's it. I'll talk to y'all next time. Goodbye.